They made me call my wife.
Hello.
And I said, hey, she said, where are you? Oh, I'm fine. I had to go on a business trip. Because they would tell me what I had to say. And the next day I said, I want you to do me a favor. Just take a change of clothes and leave the country.
Tonight? Are you kidding?
Leave everything else there just what it is.
But no, you gotta leave like... Good job, boy. Good job. His wife is Colombian. And, you know, in South America, back then, a lot of times if you were kidnapped, there was a pretty good chance the police were involved. And so with that in mind, when he called his wife and told her, you need to go to your mother's in Colombia and don't call anybody, especially the police, she didn't.
In those first days, Mark had been racking his brain trying to figure out who these guys could be. And then, with one remark.
Coming up on 2020 on ID, a glittering city and the dark side of greed.
It's a story that has everything in it. Drugs and millions of dollars, kidnappings and crime.
A self-made millionaire who had it all. Houses, cars, a beautiful wife. Now they wanted it too and would do anything to get it.
They say we kidnap him.
We'll shake him down and then we'll let him go, and that's it. That was the plan. The problem is it turned into a lot more than that.
Now I got 2 bullets in this gun.
They would take me to a chair, put a gun to my head, cock the hammer.
And that starts the making of the perfect crime.
If you don't take them off the street, they're going to do this again.
Hot, violent,
Look behind you, I'm coming for you.
and inspired by envy and betrayal.
I'm gonna get you.
Revenge for real. Miami. Welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. Sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction. You're about to see a true-life tale of betrayal and revenge, full of so many twists and turns and life and death drama that it's hard to believe it actually happened. As first told in 2013, this is the real story, with interviews from the real people involved and dramatic recreations based on what actually happened. It's set in Miami, the kind of town where luxury can blur the line between fantasy and reality, and envy can turn to murder.
They say living well is the best revenge, and self-made millionaire Mark Marcelo Schiller was living well.
I started creating businesses since I was 9, finding different ways to make money. I would stand outside of the supermarket, Wallbounds in Brooklyn, and offer to carry people's groceries home for $0.10 a quarter.
He grew up poor, first in Argentina and then New York.
Come on, you ready?
But now he had a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful children. And everything he touched seemed to turn to gold.
Come to your daddy. Come over here.
I was making a considerable amount of money, but I lived a normal life.
Of course, normal is a relative term. In his safe, $14,000 in cash, $100K in his checking account. He owned a number of businesses, a successful accounting firm,
My accounting practice, it was a cash cow.
a nutritional supplement company. Plus, he had investments, a 34-story condominium tower, a restaurant. Oh yes, in the Cayman Islands, $500,000 in offshore accounts. And he had a friend, George Delgado.
Hi, Mark.
His assistant introduced them.
She comes to me and she says, my husband, Jorge Delgado, he just lost his job. We're living with my parents. Could you give him a job? And I've always been, softy, so I said, okay, bring him in.
He started out as a gopher, but after only 4 years, he'd worked his way up to become Mark's right-hand man.
It's a good stuff.
Yeah. Mark became a very good friend of George, taught him the business and kind of made him a man that could do something and support himself.
George Delgado devoted his life to Schiller.
My wife would make him food. He was like part of the family.
And Schiller wanted to reward his loyalty.
What happened eventually, I said, okay, let's do something else. I said, let's form a mortgage buying and selling business.
He'd made partner, and Delgado was grateful, of course. But it wasn't enough. He wanted more. His own deals, his own identity. He wanted to improve himself.
One more, let's go.
And all that started to come true for him at a place called the Sun Gym.
Good job, man. Right on.
Well, the Sun Gym was a place where people were pumping iron, they were using steroids to help themselves look better, and they were interested in breaking into the Miami scene.
And no one was more interested than the manager of the gym, Danny Lugo.
Check him out.
Lugo was a very personable guy. He looked sort of like a thug, but he was a very charming man.
He was, for lack of a better term, smooth. He had wives that he divorced that still would do anything for him.
If you had to pick a word, you'd say he was the brains behind this organization. But I have to say that's really stretching the word brains.
But you don't have to be smart to be dangerous. And Lugo was soon filling Delgado's head with ideas. Not all of them 100% legal.
So what are you doing tonight?
Right from the get-go, I didn't like him. He was one of these characters you can tell was bad news.
So,
Lugo had a criminal record for fraud, and Schiller says he told Delgado not to trust him.
I pulled him aside, who's this guy? He's a friend I made at the gym. You're going to the gym? And I said, you got to be kidding me. If he had to know Jorge, he was a slim little guy. He's not a gym type.
And that's when Mark starts to try and pull away from George.
Hey, Mark.
When Delgado started getting into shady business deals with Lugo, Schiller says he finally cut him off, dissolving their partnership.
I'm not signing this.
I go, listen, last thing I'm going to tell you is if you stay friends with Lugo, you're going to end up getting in trouble. Just remember these words today. And that was the last time I talked to him.
Delgado was devastated. What was he going to do for money? He was back to square one.
George Delgado feels at some point that he was shortchanged.
He actually had George believing somehow that Mark had cheated him out of $200,000. And George felt he needed to be vindicated.
George Delgado wanted revenge. Gym manager Lugo and his buddy Adrian Doorbal commiserated.
Nice.
And took him to the place they always went when they wanted to think. They told Delgado Schiller wasn't his friend.
What's up, buddy? What's on your mind? Why you look so
They told him Schiller had ripped him off.
We're here to help.
And they had a novel idea how to get what was owed to him.
I'm thinking, we kidnap him.
Coming up, what drives a man to betray his mentor?
They all wanted what they didn't have and decided that it would be theirs for the taking.
They have tasers. They have guns.
Come on, come on!
What Schiller didn't know was what these guys were going to do next.
Mark Schiller was living the American dream. He started with nothing and made his fortune through hard work. His protege, George Delgado, wanted that dream too. And he was a young man hungry to rise in the world. But the two men had a falling out. And Delgado now felt he had nothing. That meant Mark Schiller was in a lot of trouble.
What drives a man to betray his mentor? Well, he was an ex-mentor now. An ex-mentor who had everything Delgado wanted.
You knew you could always count on me. Whatever problem he had, whatever he had, he needed.
Well, Delgado needed a lot.
I would never have said no to him. I was always there for him as a friend.
And that was really all this was about.
George Delgado's with his two buddies, and he's complaining.
I deserve more.
George needed his friend's money. After all, Schiller had cut him off. Wasn't Delgado entitled to a little revenge?
So Lugo gets a brilliant idea that we'll shake him down, and then we'll let him go, and that's it.
Think about it.
That was the plan. The problem is it turned into a lot more than that.
I don't know what Lugo painted in his head